I can still recall the morning I vanished. The house was quiet. Sunlight slipped through the blinds, carving pale stripes across the wooden floor. Her perfume still floated faintly in the air. The same scent she used to wear on our nights out, the one that now made my stomach tighten. My name is Daniel, and 5 years ago, I walked away from my life without a single word. It wasn't anger that pushed me through the door. It wasn't even heartbreak. It was the moment I understood that love had rotted into sympathy, and I was the only one too blind to see it. For months, I pretended the signs weren't there. The late nights at work, the phone that never faced up, the laughter I was no longer part of. You don't need a confession when the silence between you gets that heavy. The truth lives in it. The night before I left, I came home early from a business trip. I wanted to surprise her, flowers in one hand, takeout from her favorite Thai place in the other. But when I stepped into our bedroom, the surprise was mine. A man's jacket hung over a chair. Hers was on the floor next to it. 2 glasses on the nightstand, half full. They were asleep. I didn't even see his face clearly. Just the outline of someone who didn't belong there. She shifted slightly when I stepped closer. For a moment I imagined shaking her awake, demanding answers, asking why, but what for? She'd already told me the whole story without a word. I placed the flowers on the nightstand beside the wine glasses and walked out. No shouting, no slammed door, no letter. Just soft footsteps on wooden floors and the distant hum of city traffic outside. I grabbed my passport, my wallet, and nothing else. For the next 5 years, I built a different life, a small cabin in Colorado, a job restoring old wood, and a kind of peace that only comes when you stop chasing closure. I didn't tell a soul where I went. Not family, not friends, not her. My phone stayed off. My email was deleted. My existence washed away like chalk in the rain. The strange thing about disappearing is that eventually you forget you ever existed in the first place. You stop asking questions, stop replaying conversations. The noise dies out. Eventually, even her face blurred away. Until last Friday night. It was snowing, heavy and quiet, covering the trees in white. I had just finished sanding an oak table when someone knocked. 3 slow taps, uncertain. Nobody visits out here. Delivery drivers leave things at the gate. Friends call, if any still exist. When I opened the door, the cold rushed in, and behind it, a ghost died. Buried long ago. She stood there in a gray coat, eyes wide, like she feared I might disappear again right in front of her. Daniel, she breathed like my name was a wound. For a second, my mind emptied. I'd imagine this moment 100 ways, her begging, apologizing, trying to explain. But reality was softer, smaller. She looked older, exhausted. Her hair was shorter, streaked with gray. Life had done its carving on her too. I didn't speak. I simply stepped aside and let her in. Old habits cling to the bones. Even after betrayal, she studied the cabin, the single chair, the bare table, the wood stove glowing warmly. You really did disappear, she said, almost whispering it to herself. I nodded. That was the point. She flinched, tried to smile, but it fell short. I thought I'd never find you, she murmured. I looked everywhere. Why now? I asked. Her breath shook. Because he's gone and I needed to tell you something. I didn't move. Didn't speak. The logs in the stove cracked. For 5 years, I pictured all the things I might say if she ever walked through my door. But standing there, I realized I didn't owe her anything, not anger, not forgiveness, not comfort. Only silence.
Still, some part of me needed to know.
What brought her here after half a
Decade. So I looked at her again, and
quietly said, then say it. Her hands trembled. I made the worst mistake of my entire life, she whispered. And I've paid for it every single day. I leaned against the wall, arms folded, waiting. The snow kept falling outside, turning the world into white silence. She looked like someone who'd been dragging her guilt behind her for miles. But guilt never fixes anything, it just decorates regret. Start at the beginning, I said. She swallowed hard. It began the night you left. Her voice shook like someone who hadn't used it in years. I woke up that morning and you were gone.
At
First, I thought you'd just gone for a
drive.
Then an hour went by.
Then a day.
And then I noticed the flowers. You'd left them on the nightstand. She paused, staring down at her hands the same way she used to when she knew she'd crossed a line. I kept telling myself I could explain it, that it wasn't what it
Looked like.
but it was Daniel.
It was. Exactly that.
I still didn't speak. The truth didn't shock me, and it never had. What hurt was how detached it felt now, like it
Was something that happened to someone
else entirely. She looked up, waiting for a reaction, but the silence between us stretched long and thin, like an old scar, pale and permanent. I kept hoping you'd come back, she
continued.
Every knock on the door, every call, I thought it was you. But weeks became months. And she stopped, closing her eyes. He left too.
Said I.
Wasn't worth the effort. That part didn't surprise me. People who betray rarely manage to keep what they betrayed for. I tossed another log into the stove.
So,
5 years later, you hunt me down to tell me you regret it? No, she whispered. To tell you I never stopped loving you. That made me look at her.
For a split
second, I saw the woman I once married. The spark, the warmth, the promise.
But
it faded as fast as it came. Love doesn't survive the kind of wound she dealt it. It fossilizes, preserved but gone. She stepped closer. I know you hate me, but I had to see you. I had to try to fix
it.
I shook my head slowly. You can't fix something by showing up 5 years. Too late. Tears swelled, and she laughed bitterly through them. You sound exactly like before, calm, composed, like nothing ever reaches you. I learned that
from you, I said.
She flinched at that, the words landing harder than I meant. But they were true. When someone you trust breaks you, you build walls high, enough to keep even your own heart out. We stood there, two strangers holding the ghost of a life we used to know. The clock ticked on the shelf. Outside, snow
kept falling.
Finally, she whispered, I'm sick, Daniel. The air left my chest. What do you mean? Cancer, she said. It's spreading fast. The doctors say maybe a year. I stared, not sure what to feel. Pity, anger, relief? Life has a cruel way of balancing the scales.
She broke me.
Quietly, and now something was breaking her the same way. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she said.
Quickly.
I just needed you to know.
I
wanted to see you one last time.
To say,
I'm sorry to your face. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The fire cracked softly. She stood there, tears shining in the orange glow, waiting for something I didn't have to
give.
I built this life to forget you, I said. Finally. To stop hurting. And you showing up now? I exhaled. It feels like digging up a grave. She nodded, shoulders trembling. I know. I just couldn't leave this world without saying it. When she turned to leave, I didn't stop her. I only watched as she walked into the storm, a small, fragile shape fading into white. For a while, I stood in the doorway, the cold biting my face.
I thought about the
Years I'd lost, the silence I'd found, and how closure isn't always an answer. Sometimes it's a door you decide never to open again. That night, I sat by the fire until
morning.
her words echoed in my mind, not as pain but as distance. I didn't hate her anymore. I didn't love her
Either.
What I felt was something simpler,
Peace.
the kind that arrives when you finally understand that leaving wasn't an ending at all, it was the start of becoming myself. The next morning, I wrote a single line in the notebook beside my bed, the only record of who I used to be. She came to apologize, but I had already forgiven her, not for her, for me. Then I closed the book, set it on the table, and watched the snow melt outside, the world quietly brightening again.